Hello all, James here, and if you're wondering why I'm bright red, or at least partially red, it's because I've already recorded this video once and the microphone decided not to work. So anyway, here we go again. I've already done 2 of these videos before, or 3 actually now, but one in complete silence, like Timeless Tony Storm, a silent movie star. I've already done 2 of these videos already, right? So AEW Grand Slam, but ultimately with the show airing in the US last night, I watched it this morning. There's a lot more good than there is to say bad with AEW Collision / AEW Grand Slam Brisbane. Now, the big news of the show was actually after the show closed up, and it was Tony Khan actually got booed heavily by a certain contingent of the AEW fans when he came onto stage, as he does every show, to thank the fans for turning up to AEW Grand Slam. And then, he says we'll be back and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes he does a dance, sometimes he rolls down the ramp, that kind of thing. But anyway, did Tony Khan deserve to get booed? I'll answer that as well, and I'm leaving that in. To make matters worse, Tony Khan got booed right after Toni Storm had just won the AEW Women's title. So the fans were in as good a mood as they were going to be in, and they still booed Tony Khan. So anyway, here are some of the reasons why. High prices with the tickets, as this is a short version of what I've said in other videos, but I need to explain. The people were reassigned to worse seats when Grand Slam was moved from the arena to the stadium. A lot of attendee dissatisfaction over that prior to the show. Now, no real promotion for the show or matches announced until maybe 10 days beforehand, then they fleshed the card out. Fans were expecting a bigger show than an AEW Collision taping, and they were feeling misled. And yes, it was a stacked AEW Collision taping, but it was still the B show. And then they bookended it with the Ring of Honor taping, which nobody watches. It's not even the C, it's the F show, quite frankly. Did Tony Khan no favours when he announced that? Lack of AEW stars on the show. MJF, Adam Page, Hurt Syndicate, Christian, FTR, Young Bucks, Jeff Jarrett, Samoa Joe, Hook, Swerve, Strickland, Undisputed Kingdom, Jack Perry, etc. No idea for fans if it was going to be a pay-per-view or TV or special. And once again, it was just all last minute and just no real... It felt like an afterthought until 2 weeks ago. A load more reasons I'll get into in a minute. But we are now going to do the good stuff. AEW Grand Slam came across great on TV with the dressing and the fans and stuff like that. But I'm going to give you the list here. The entranceway in the ring looked great. I like the green and gold theme as well. The audience were great throughout. When I say the arena looked great, I'm saying that because it didn't look like a house show. If they'd gone all the way over there and then made it look like a house show, that would have been the absolute death knell. And made when they made AEW Collision taping, it already seemed unimportant anyway. But if they'd not made it look good for TV, they would have just killed it, I think. The audience were great throughout because they paid a lot of money. They better damn well enjoyed themselves, and they did. It's the Australian fans' Virgin Territory. Of course, it's going to be good. AEW still sold around 11,000 tickets, so it was a packed arena, or mostly packed arena. Nearly $1.5 million gate, somewhere between 1.3 and 1.5. They didn't mention either of these facts on the show for some reason, but once again, the crowd were great throughout. The matches AEW did give the fans were mostly very good as well, so they got, at least for those 2 hours, their money's worth. No Excalibur, just Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness, which is probably the best commentary duo in AEW currently, and also a happy ending for the fans, but not that kind of happy ending, just emotional happy ending. Now, show issues and technical issues. AEW sold out of merchandise entirely by the time the first match got into the ring. So this is such a WCW move. They used to do that, especially in the last couple of years, and Lance Storm tells a great story when he was the Canadian hero, like Bret Hart kind of thing. He had the maple, leaf on his tights and stuff like that, and the Canadian fans loved him, and I think they shipped out like 24 t-shirts for a Canadian tour. I mean, it's sort of similar. Hopefully Tony Khan, AEW have learned their lesson. Now, here's the other thing. Here's the big thing. Everything in the arena looked great, apart from that piece of shit ring. Where did they get that from? I've seen online posts suggesting that this was just an indie ring they got from down the road, and to be honest, it looked like it. The posts were concaved in. It was at least 2 foot, if not 4 foot smaller than the normal AEW size ring. It could have been 16 by 16. Something else was the ring... the ring was so bouncy, it was unbelievable. So just nothing, there was no impact and nothing looked like it hurt. So the ring was a real letdown for that. And you can ship all the LED boards over, but you can't ship a ring over. I don't understand, unless they rented them locally, which that wouldn't surprise me either. But ship the ring over, for God's sake. I mean, it's not that big of a deal if you have enough forward thinking and pre-planning, which of course Grand Slam didn't have much of. The audience being mic'd, I don't think they were mic'd properly. I mean, they were still loud at times. You could hear the chants and the cheering, but in the interim where the sound was low, it sounded dead silent, and I just don't think the microphone, the fans were mic'd as well as they could have been. Once again, there's simply not enough stars for what fans paid for, in my opinion, but I've already said very high prices and only, a smattering of recognisable names on the Collision show and only a couple on the Ring of Honor show, like Jericho or Dustin Runnels, that kind of thing. Once again, it was a Collision show with a Ring of Honor show beforehand, and it's way too much money to charge. You call it a perception problem, call it whatever you want, but the thing is, if you're taking a B show with the F show, you can't be charging pay-per-view prices. Now, AEW Collision was also a 5-match card, and 4 of the 5 home country, and I'm going to include Jay White New Zealand. I know it's not home country, but it's near enough. Australasian, let's say. Australasian home wrestlers lost. They were on the losers' end of the purse, as Gorilla Monsoon might say. Although Kyle Fletcher is a heel going against Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, so that was fine. But too many homegrown talents, or near enough, losing. Now let's get to the matches. I don't do match reviews, but Omega versus Will Ospreay versus the Don Callis family was very good. A bit long, maybe, but Dave Meltzer called it Match of the Year caliber, which it wasn't. Mercedes Moné versus Harley Cameron was not anywhere near as good. But why didn't Harley Cameron win? I mean, she's from Australia. She's got the most momentum going behind her out of anyone, any of the women in AEW. You might even include Toni Storm with that, I don't know. But, the doll's doing well. And the fact is, yeah, she's green and she's young, but you just put with a veteran. Give her the belt, for God's sake. I mean, you got to strike while the iron's hot with these kinds of things, especially when you're in Australia. But she lost. Here's the only one, the match I really disagree with. Death Riders versus Adam Copeland, Edge, Cope, whatever you want to call it, and Jay White. Once again, Jay White's from New Zealand. Why did Death Riders have to win? There was nothing on the line. All the homegrown talent so far had lost already. Just give Jay White the win. Have him beat Claudio. It was no big deal. But instead, Jon Moxley soundly destroyed Adam Copeland and choked him out into unconsciousness, I guess. And the referee stopped the match with that sort of like a bulldog choke kind of thing. Then Buddy Matthews, no card. Buddy Matthews, once again, Australian. He lost, but that's more acceptable because I don't think anyone was expecting him to beat Okada, and Okada had a title as well. But it's almost like Vince McMahon is booking this at the moment because that's what he used to do. He used to go into, I don't know, if he went into Oklahoma, there's the famous one, and then he just sadly just beat Jim Ross every single time for no reason other than I guess he liked it and to annoy the hometown fans. But at least at the end, Toni Storm, Mariah May. Here's the thing. The Wrestling Observer newsletter had their awards out a few days ago, which I'll be probably going into in a future video. And the fans voting gave Timeless Toni Storm the character Timeless Toni, not rookie Toni Storm, but Timeless. Like, she came 5th on worst gimmicks. I mean, it's like, how can you trust people to give awards out who are that wrong? That being said, Toni Storm wins, gets the belt, sends the fans home happy. Imagine if she'd lost, you really would have killed the territory if she'd lost, but thankfully she won and everyone was very happy. Now, after AEW Collision went off the air, Tony Khan wanders out to the arena on the entranceway and says the following. Quite a lot of booing, mixed but audible booing. That fan dissatisfaction coming through there. And once again, I'll get to that. Did he deserve it in a second? But Tony Khan was then cheered when he announced that AEW was going to be returning to Australia, which of course the fans were going to cheer that. But because the show was good. I mean, if the show was terrible and they said we're coming back, then they would have booed that as well, I guess. But there's a QR code that's going to be out, and you scan that for sign up for updates kind of thing. But we don't know where or when or how or times or anything. So I suspect 2026, but that's just my guess. Now, did Tony Khan deserve to get booed? Yeah, I think he did, because it's been a shit show going all the way up to Grand Slam. The show itself came across really well on television. It was a very good show. And especially if you don't know the backstory. But I still don't think what Tony Khan gave the AEW faithful in Australia, travelling halfway across the world, I don't think he gave them enough, even with a really packed AEW Collision taping, There was only 5 matches of any worth. I mean, and can you really say Buddy and Okada was worth anything? So really only 4 matches that were worth anything. There were so many stars left out. I think it could have been a lot more for the, at least at the beginning, the exorbitant prices that Tony Khan and AEW were charging. Hopefully also there have been lessons learned regarding merchandise and then, promotion, forward thinking, pricing, expectations versus reality, and just telling fans what's going to be happening. There needs to be realistic expectations set when the tickets go on sale, quite frankly. And also, it just needs better promotion, because really, the show was an afterthought until like 10 days prior, I think, for the most part. So, but here's the real thing. Was the show a flop? Absolutely not. Because if you don't know the backstory or the original expectations, then absolutely not. But the original expectations, yes, it was. For a show that was booked for an outdoor stadium, 55,000 tickets were going to be on sale, premium prices, and the show was originally theorised to be a pay-per-view, etc., or at least a show on Max, a special on Max. In that respect, yes, it was a flop, because, they would have been hoping for at least 25 to 30,000 people buying tickets. But in reality, 11,000 in a country where only 20,000 people turn on the TV to watch your shows for free is a huge achievement. So in that respect, it was a huge success. So, I mean, it's really tough to say whether it was a massive flop or a huge success. It's somewhere, it's both. It's just both. It was a flop and a success, depending on what you think of it. But ultimately, the show will be a success in the long run if they see their failures here, with the promotions calling it Collision. They can't call it Collision if they come back. I'm not even sure they can call it Grand Slam. They should just do a pay-per-view. The fans are great in Australia. They're demanding the best, especially for all this travel and all this hype and all this hoopla. They deserve the best. And and with pay-per-views, the US pay-per-view market, we'll have to do it at a different time. Well, do it. UFC do it. Boxing has done it, I'm sure. But UFC have definitely done it. I mean, most famously with Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm. But just put the show on at a different time that's more conducive for US pay-per-view buys. Do it that way. I think that's really the lesson. This is a learning point for Tony Khan and AEW, or at least I hope it is, regarding the merch and everything else, pre-planning, promotion. Make it a pay-per-view. Give the Australian fans what they deserve. That's what I'm going to say. But ultimately, in a vacuum, that show came across really, really well. Now, like, comment, subscribe. I'll be back in a day or two.